Hello everyone, my name is Bárbara Freitas and today I'm going to present you my work about the use of automatic recorders and automated detection to obtain vocalization data in difficult terrains, more specifically the case of the Príncipe owl. Many bird species worldwide are difficult to study due to their habits, rareness, or to accessibility limitations to their habitat. So it's easy to predict that doing field work on a nocturnal species inhabiting in dense forests in steep slopes is going to be hard, even more if they are rare. Passive acoustic monitoring, that is basically the use of automated recording units in the field, has been used more and more, and it is a valuable survey technique for birds, improving both the quality and quantity of field data available. However, this sometimes is difficult to apply for rare species. The great advantage of PAM is that it can cover broad spatial and temporal scales, it records without human disturbance, creates permanent records that can be analyzed later, and it allows sampling a wide range of taxonomic groups. However, it generates a huge amount of data, resulting in time-consuming analysis and creating data storage and management challenges. Fortunately, over the last decade, automated recorders and automated detection tools for species-level analysis have advanced significantly, and here are some examples of softwares we can use. So for this project, we aim to evaluate the performance of automatic recording and detection in studying the recently discovered endemic owl species, the Príncipe owl, to determine the periods of highest vocal activity, and finally to assess if the owl has vocal signatures. This means to examine whether the vocalizations of different sexes and individuals could be distinguished. This species has short and very repetitive notes, as you can also listen, which makes it simpler to identify. This owl is endemic from Príncipe Island, that is a little piece of land located on the west side of the African continent, about 200 kilometers offshore from Gabon. And the owl is known to occur only in the south part of the natural park, which is represented here in dark gray. This region matches with the most remote and inaccessible areas of the island. During the day, it's already challenging to do field work there, since it's slippery, full of vegetation, so it's even more difficult at night. So for our study, we used passive acoustic monitoring, more specifically audio mode automatic recorders, and they were programmed to record from 4 in the afternoon to 6 a.m. in the morning, in cycles of 10 minutes recording followed by 5 minutes in pause to save battery and memory. And each audio mode was attached to trees, as you can see in this picture, in the same sampling points that we were serving during one night. This was done in January 2019 during the short dry season. In total, we surveyed 80 points, but due to the limited number of audio modes, we deployed them in 72 points and in 3 extra that represented areas where presence of the owl was highly probable. This made a total of 75 points that were recording during one night in each point. After deleting some errors, we end up with about 576 hours of recordings to analyze. Then we used the 3D software to automatically detect the owl vocalizations. This software allows for detection and labeling of recorded sound events and classification of any new acoustic data into known classes. For the detection, we had to split the files in 10-second files so that the data could identify all sound events. Then we had to manually label a sample of sound events that was representative of the possible sounds to find. In this case, we labeled 446 sound events, including sounds from the owl, parrot, insects, frogs, and noise that could be rain, steps, human voice, or mechanical noise. This constituted the reference sound dataset, that is the classifier. In the classification process, we obtain a recognition score for each sound event, which is a number that goes from 0 to 1 and reflects the probability of that sound event be from one specific class, owl or parrot, for example. In order to check errors on the recognition score, we listen a sample of new files and checked if the presence or absence of the owl was correctly assigned. Then we design with false positives and false negatives. We improved the detection by labeling files with the most obvious mistakes, and then we repeated the process 3 times until we were satisfied with the performance. Overall, we listened 4.7 hours of recordings, which correspond to about 0.8% of all the dataset. So it passed from 446 sound events labeled to 770. We obtained a better performance also when we didn't consider the 2 hours after sunset and the 2 hours before sunrise, the periods close to the dawn and dusk. These periods coincide with higher activity of many other birds, including the grey parrot, which was frequently wrongly assigned as owl by the automatic detection in these periods. And we set 0.66 as threshold, meaning that files with the recognition score higher than this value were assigned as presences. To assess the number of individuals, we randomly listened 10 sound events per point for which the song of owl was detected by the reader. The points analyzed were the ones in common with the observer-based survey, those 72 points. And then we analyzed the spectrograms of those files, and by checking some sound characteristics like the internote interval and shading differences, we were able to know how many individuals there were, and consequently the number of points in which the owl was detected, shown here in green. By comparing the numbers with the ones registered during the observer-based survey, we found out that we obtained similar results, slightly higher numbers with the automated workflow. In 7 points, the presence of the owl was only detected on the observer-based survey, but this was compensated through the 9 points that were detected only with the automated workflow. Regarding vocal activity, this was assessed by calculating the proportion of detection for 9 time intervals. We found that the owl is active during all the period analyzed, being more active from 9 to 11 at night and from 2 to 3 a.m. But this was not significant, so all of these periods could be used to record the owl, and more data is needed to evaluate this. In case of power consumption restrictions, we recommend to use just a period in orange. For the sex and individual signature, we analyzed spectrograms from the individuals previously identified, and then we extracted these 15 variables of each note that are mainly related with frequency and time. For the individual signature, we selected a minimum of 3 up to 22 notes for each individual, totaling 191 notes for 24 individuals. We calculated the proportion for individuality coding, which was done by comparing the within to between individual coefficients of variation of the measured characteristics. Our acoustic variables obtain a value higher than 1, indicating that variability between individuals is higher than within individuals. So these variables may potentially carry individual information and then are useful for the following analysis. We performed a discriminant function analysis where only 51.3% of the notes were assigned to the correct individual, but when analyzing only individuals for which a minimum of 10 notes were available, this percentage increased to 79.7%. For sex signature, we used the same files that were used for individual signature, and we manually distinguished male and female by seeing the spectrogram. For this, we assumed that, like in other owl species, the females produce higher frequency songs. The DFA correctly assigned 91.5% of the notes, and although our data indicates that sex signature is possible and vocal individuality is likely to exist, we consider this result just as preliminary due to the small sample size and the short time frame that was analyzed. To sum up, in this study we used automated recording and call detection to assess the presence and characterize patterns of vocal communication in this recently discovered species living in a difficult terrain island. This method showed to be powerful for monitoring and gathering biological information on this species, and besides, it can also be used for other species at the same time, so the advantages are promising. However, we should be careful when studying species with similar vocalizations, labeling more files from those. In addition, we should balance the number of labels of good and bad quality recordings, but depending on our aims, if we want to obtain every file with presences or if we prefer to have less presences detected but with good quality. We particularly encourage the use of this automated workflow to survey this owl, since it is a less demanding and time-consuming method compared to observer-based surveys or passive acoustic monitoring without automated detection. With this workflow, we only need to label once and improve the method, instead of listening every files all the time we go to the field. It can substitute or at least decrease the need for observer-based surveys, decreasing also the disturbance in the location. And it can be used to assess biodiversity over a range of spatial and temporal scales in places that are not so frequently studied due to accessibility limitations. For this species in particular, it can contribute to a more accurate distribution map of the owl that at this stage has many gaps due to accessibility constraints during night. As you can see in the map, in the middle of the gray area, the owl was not surveyed. And this method can also be used to assess activity difference along the year, for example, to detect breeding season peaks or movement, and more important, to monitor the health of this endemic species. And of course, this work wouldn't have been possible without the support from these funding agencies and our collaborations, and thank you for attending this presentation.